A Green Party MSP has told us that Scotland needs 1 million more migrants to work the land to tackle climate change. This woman's bonkers, right? And she also claimed something which is bordering on plantation level racism, which she obviously didn't realise what she was saying. But another person in another time saying the same thing about these migrants that we have to bring in to work the land is absolutely abysmal. But then nobody will think because she's a Green MSP and the Greens can't be racist. But what she said gives a mad insight into what she actually thinks about the migrants than the million more that she claims is needed to fight climate change and work the land in Scotland. Now this story was MSP Ariane Burgess. I've never heard of her either. I think she's the one that sits up the back behind Ross Gear and all that, alongside a guy with grey hair who doesn't get to say anything either. They just sort of sit there like that for 5 years and get £72,000 per annum to do nothing. But anyway, she was at a meeting, Holyrood meeting about land reform, and came out with some absolute crackers. Now, she also said that it would create a challenge for the Highlands, which may not be ready for multicultural impact of the mass influx. I bet the people in the Highlands would strongly agree with that. She said migrants may be better suited to farming than an Indigenous Scots, and the country must be welcoming and embrace people. Now, I'm going to get the quote, right? I mean, it just beggars belief. Our comments come amid plans to provide temporary accommodation for hundreds of asylum seekers at a barracks in Inverness, which is where she's from. And she's obviously got loads of people giving her stick about it. So she's the Rural Affairs spokesperson for the Greens. Imagine that, eh? And this bit's a bit of a shocker. The convener of Holyrood's local government housing and planning committee, who decides sort of things like who we should build houses for and probably what policies we should have to prioritise certain parts of the demographic, which is quite bizarre considering her views on the topic. Now, she spoke at a land reform conference hosted by lobby group Revive in Perth last Saturday, right? And here's what she had to say. If there aren't any people in the Straths and Glens, we're not going to be tackling climate change. We absolutely need people in our rural communities. Now, forgive me for possibly sounding stupid, but I would have thought the more people you have in a country, the more chance you have of having a bad effect on the climate, if that's what floats your boat. Because more people require more energy, more food, more transport, all these things. But this one wants us to bring more in because it will tackle climate change. We absolutely need people in our rural communities. I go around my region, I think, are people in the Highlands and Islands ready for a multicultural Highlands and Islands? Because that's absolutely what we need. Now, she's not gave away any justification for why we need a multicultural Highlands and Islands. I'm quite sure the people in the Highlands and Islands, if they had to get an influx of people, they would be quite happy if they integrated, which into their culture, rather than bringing outside cultures. But according to this one, that's absolutely what we need. More multiculturalism. What I learned when I was busy with the independence campaign is that Scotland needs at least 1 million more people. And they're not going to come from here. They're going to come from elsewhere. This is when the ludicrous starts. They're going to come because they can no longer live where they grew up. We hear this, because of climate change and wars. So these people are coming here because of climate change. Can somebody give me in the comments below one example of any country in the world where people have to flee it because of climate change? And she thinks it's because of wars as well. Well, I met a guy, remember I went to Dover and it inspired me to go to Calais, and that inspired me to go to Lesbos to find out how these illegals are coming into Europe. And I spoke to a guy from Cameroon Who's one of these people you're talking about? Now, Cameroon isn't melting, and there is no war. But he's coming here, and she thinks people are coming to... Oh, God, I struggle with this one. I actually thought this was going to be a sort of dead, professional, sensible video. But I just can't take these people serious. So we need to be welcoming and embrace people. And actually many of those people possibly, now this is a mad bit, have more of the earth and the skills in their bodies and their bones, and possibly know how to work the land better than we do. Maybe not specifically to our climate, but they could have a lot to bring to enrich Scottish culture. Now, oh my God. So, I kind of think that's racist. We need to embrace people, and actually many of the people possibly have more of the earth and the skills in their bodies and their bones to know how to work the land better. That's like, you go over there and pick some cotton, because that's what you're good at. Am I wrong? Tell me, am I picking this up wrong? Am I absolutely bonkers thinking what this woman said is absolutely, one, ridiculous, and two, I don't even know if it's virgin in racism. I think it just is racism. You away over there and you do the fields because it's in your DNA basically, it's in your bones and your body's in their bones to work the land. You poor migrants who have that about you. I swear to God, I could think of 100 scenarios where somebody other than a Green MSP would say such a thing and they would get slaughtered for it. See, you migrants, we're into the fields and pick some cotton, that's what you need to do. How outrageous is that? Anyway, where are we? Maybe not specifically our climate, but see, oh my God. See these places where she thinks people are fleeing for climate change and wars? Is there any similarity between the sort of land there and a field in air, right? Climate, conditions, what they make, what we're producing. I would kind of struggle. But you've got to do it. But they could have a lot to bring and enrich Scottish culture. How does somebody that's not Scottish enrich Scottish culture, if you don't mind me asking? How's that even possible? Somebody that's even more Scottish culturally than me, because that would enhance Scottish culture. I think what you really mean is that could erode Scottish culture by bringing 1 million people in. Now, 1 million people, I think the last I looked, Scottish population's about 5.5 million. So this crank is wanting to bring in about 20% more. Can you imagine the strain that would put in our infrastructure? National health, transport, energy, food supply, all these things. But it'll tackle climate change. How would increasing your population by 20% help anything to do with climate change? How's that work? It doesn't. It's just what she's got to do is, I'm a Green, so I've got to say climate change, I've got to say migrants are good, and I've got to say culture and enriching and things like that and everything that I say. But they don't actually realise when you join the bits in the middle of the words that they need to say, they come out with total bollocks like this crank, right? But there you go. It's absolutely crackers what these people say. So how do I summarise it? We have to bring 1 million people in to work our land, because that's kind of what they're good at, right? And it'll help the climate change. Oh aye, and they're fleeing here because of climate change and wars, apparently. These people, up until Humza made an arse of it, were actually in our government with the SNP. Absolute cranks, a lot of them. Now, if you want other people to see this, which I would strongly recommend, click the thumbs up, put your comments below and hit the share button. That'll help drive the algorithm and try and get a jolt and YouTube put it in front of more people. And YouTube are putting my videos in front of less people now than they were 6 months ago. So double check if you're subscribed. And if you're not, please do so. That does help the channel, because they're kind of went full circle on this. They used to put my videos in a lot of people's timelines that weren't subscribed. Now they kind of only do it because I can see all the algorithm data to people who are subscribed. So please subscribe. But more important than all that, see, unless you're an absolute crank that says the most racist things in the world but would never in a month of Sundays believe that people like you could actually say anything racist or stupid, then not you, but everyone else. Have a great day. Cheery bye now.